My parents skipped my wedding, claiming I was a disgrace, but the video that played during dinner proved them wrong. The air felt thick with anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks. My name is Chloe, and this is the story of my wedding day. A day that was supposed to be perfect but turned into a whirlwind of secrets, heartbreak, and redemption. Before we dive in, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment with your city and country, and let's see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to that day in a small coastal town in Massachusetts, where the waves crashed softly, and my world was about to turn upside down. It was a crisp October afternoon, the kind where the sunlight paints everything golden. The venue, a charming seaside barn draped in white roses and fairy lights, buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. I stood in my ivory lace gown, my heart racing as I adjusted my veil. My fiancé, Ethan, looked impossibly handsome in his navy suit, his warm brown eyes catching mine across the room. We were surrounded by friends, cousins, and coworkers, all smiling, snapping photos, and sipping champagne. To anyone watching, it was the picture-perfect wedding. But beneath the surface, something felt off. A quiet tension lingered, like a melody you can't quite place. My parents, Richard and Margaret, weren't there. They'd refused to come, claiming I was a disgrace. Their words stung like salt in a wound, but I'd pushed them aside, determined to make this day about love, not resentment. Ethan squeezed my hand, his steady presence anchoring me. "You okay?" he whispered, his voice soft but laced with concern. I nodded, forcing a smile. I didn't want him to know how much their absence hurt. But as I scanned the crowd, I noticed other absences too. My older sister Lauren was missing, and so was Ethan's brother Jake. I brushed it off. Maybe they were running late. Still, a knot formed in my stomach, a warning I couldn't ignore. Let me set the scene. The barn was alive with warmth. Tables were adorned with candles and eucalyptus, the smell of roasted rosemary from the dinner prep wafting through the air. My best friend Sarah was flitting around, making sure every detail was perfect. Bless her type A soul. Ethan's parents, Tom and Linda, were mingling, their laughter loud and genuine, but not everyone was so carefree. My Aunt Susan kept glancing at her phone, her lips pursed. Ethan's cousin, Mia, whispered something to her husband, her eyes darting toward me. I told myself it was nothing, just wedding day jitters. After all, weddings bring out every emotion, joy, envy, regret. But deep down, I knew something was brewing. Let's rewind a bit to give you the full picture. Ethan and I met 3 years ago at a coffee shop in Boston. I spilled my latte, he offered his napkin, and somehow that clumsy moment turned into love. He proposed on a snowy night by the harbor, and I said yes before he even finished asking. We planned our wedding with care, dreaming of a day filled with family and promises. But my parents didn't approve. They called Ethan beneath me, said I was throwing my life away. I'm a graphic designer, free-spirited, and stubborn. Ethan's a high school teacher, kind and grounded. To them, his steady job and modest roots weren't enough. Their rejection hurt, but I thought I'd moved past it. I was wrong. The stakes were high that day. This wasn't just about vows. It was about proving we could build a life despite their judgment. I wanted my marriage to start with strength, not shadows of doubt. But as the ceremony approached, those shadows grew. My parents' absence left a hole, and the whispers I caught, small, sharp, like needles, hinted at something more. Ethan's mom, Linda, pulled me aside before the ceremony. "Chloe, you're radiant," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I thanked her, ignoring the unease creeping up my spine. I didn't know then that the real storm was coming, not from the sky, but from the secrets hiding among us. As we walked down the aisle, the crowd's cheers felt like a warm embrace. Ethan's vows were heartfelt, promising to love me through every mess and masterpiece. Mine were tearful, promising to choose him every day, no matter what. For a moment, I forgot the absences, the whispers, the doubts. But as we kissed and the crowd erupted, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's face. She was pale, her eyes wide, staring at something behind me. I turned, but saw nothing. Just guests clapping, flowers swaying in the breeze. "What's wrong?" I mouthed to her. She shook her head, but her hands trembled. That's when I knew. This perfect day was about to unravel. The reception began, and the tension thickened. I noticed small things: a forced laugh from Ethan's dad, a hushed argument between two cousins. My heart pounded, but I kept smiling, cutting the cake, dancing with Ethan to our song, "Can't Help Falling in Love." The crowd loved it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, judged. I leaned into Ethan, whispering, "Do you feel it? Something's off." He frowned, scanning the room. "Maybe it's just nerves," he said, but his grip on my hand tightened. I wanted to believe him, but the air felt heavy, like the moment before a confession. Little did I know the truth was about to crash our perfect day. The barn glowed under the soft twinkle of fairy lights, but the warmth couldn't mask the chill creeping into my heart. The reception was in full swing. Guests twirled on the dance floor, their laughter mingling with the clink of wine glasses. Ethan and I sat at the head table, his hand resting on mine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The knot in my stomach tightened, like a rope pulling me toward an unseen truth. Every smile I gave felt like a mask, hiding the unease that grew with every passing minute. As the band played a lively cover of Sweet Caroline, I noticed more cracks in the facade of our perfect day. Ethan's cousin, Mia, stood near the bar, her arms crossed, whispering to her husband, Dan. Their eyes flicked toward me, sharp and deliberate, before they turned away. I caught my Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, muttering something to her daughter, Emily, who shot me a look, half pity, half judgment. It was subtle, but it stung. I leaned toward Ethan, forcing a laugh. Am I imagining things, or are people acting weird? He squeezed my hand, his jaw tight. You're not imagining it, he murmured. Let's just get through dinner. The servers began placing plates of herb-crusted chicken and roasted vegetables, the aroma filling the air. Conversations hushed as guests settled at their tables, but the quiet only amplified the whispers. I overheard a snippet from a nearby table, Ethan's uncle Greg leaning toward his wife. Did you hear about Chloe's parents? They're not here because... His voice dropped, but the words disgrace and shame sliced through the air. My cheeks burned. I gripped my fork, trying to focus on the plate in front of me, but my appetite was gone. Ethan noticed, his brow furrowing. Chloe, what's wrong? He asked softly. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. How could I explain the humiliation creeping up my spine? Then came the first real spark of conflict. My cousin Emily, emboldened by a glass of wine, approached our table. Her smile was tight, like she was holding back a secret. Chloe, she said, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. It's such a shame your parents couldn't make it. I mean, family's everything, right? The words landed like a slap. Guests nearby froze, their forks hovering midair. I forced a smile, my heart pounding. Yeah, well, we're making our own family today, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Emily raised an eyebrow, her lips curling. Sure, but it's not the same, is it? She walked away, leaving a trail of awkward silence. Ethan's hand found mine under the table, his grip fierce. Ignore her, he whispered, but his eyes burned with anger. The tension kept building, layer by layer, like a storm gathering strength. As the toast began, Sarah stood up, her hands shaking as she held the microphone. Chloe and Ethan are the kind of couple who make you believe in love, she said, her voice warm but unsteady. The crowd murmured in agreement, but I noticed her glance toward the back of the room, where Ethan's brother Jake had finally appeared. He stood alone, his face unreadable, his suit slightly wrinkled. Why was he late? And where was my sister, Lauren? The questions gnawed at me, but Sarah's next words pulled me back. Not everyone supports them, but love wins, right? Her voice cracked, and a few guests exchanged looks. Was she talking about my parents, or something else? The toast continued, but each one felt like a tightrope walk. Ethan's dad, Tom, gave a heartfelt speech, but his eyes kept darting to Jake, who stared at the floor. My friend Matt, usually the life of the party, fumbled his words, mentioning obstacles and secrets before quickly sitting down. The crowd clapped, but the applause felt hollow. I leaned toward Ethan, my voice low. What's going on? Why is everyone acting like they know something we don't? He shook his head, but his knuckles were white around his glass. I don't know, Chloe, but I don't like it. Then came the moment that turned the whispers into daggers. Ethan's mom, Linda, stood for her toast. Her smile was warm, but her words carried an edge. Marriage is about trust, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. It's about being honest, no matter what's happened in the past. The room went quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. I felt Ethan tense beside me. What was she implying? My past wasn't perfect. Whose is? But I'd been open with Ethan about everything. Hadn't I? Linda raised her glass, her voice sharp. To love. And to truth. The toast felt like a challenge, and the crowd's hesitant cheers only deepened my dread. As dinner continued, the air grew heavier. Jake finally sat down, but he avoided my gaze, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. Sarah kept checking her phone, her face pale. I caught more whispers, words like scandal and betrayal floating like poison. My heart raced, my mind spinning. Were they talking about my parents? Ethan's family? Or something worse? The barn, once so warm and inviting, now felt like a stage where every glance, every word, was a clue to a truth I wasn't ready to face. And then, as the servers cleared the plates, the screen at the front of the room flickered to life. A video was about to play, one I hadn't approved. My stomach dropped. Whatever was coming, it was going to change everything. The barn was a sea of flickering candlelight, but the warmth couldn't touch the icy dread pooling in my chest. The screen at the front of the room glowed to life, unprompted, its soft hum cutting through the chatter. Ethan and I had planned a slideshow of our love story, cute photos from our first date, our engagement, our goofy moments. But this wasn't it. The screen was blank, then a grainy image appeared, and my heart stopped. This was no montage of memories. This was something else entirely, something that felt like a blade poised to strike. I glanced at Ethan, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the screen. "What's this?" I whispered, but he didn't answer, his jaw clenched tight. The guests quieted, their forks pausing, their conversations fading into a tense hush. Sarah, standing near the projector, looked like she might faint, her hands twisting together. Jake, Ethan's brother, leaned forward in his seat, his expression unreadable but intense. My Aunt Susan's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes gleaming with something like anticipation. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of an unspoken truth. The video began. It was shaky, clearly filmed on a phone, showing a dimly lit room I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, sharp, familiar, cut through the speakers. My stomach lurched. It was my sister, Lauren. "I told you, Ethan's not who you think he is," she said, her tone dripping with venom. The camera panned to a man's silhouette, his back to the frame. I knew that silhouette. It was Ethan. My breath caught and I gripped the edge of the table, my nails digging into the wood. The room spun, but I couldn't look away. The video continued, Lauren's voice growing louder. "He's been lying to Chloe this whole time. You think he's this perfect guy, but he's got secrets." The camera zoomed in, catching Ethan's face in profile. He looked tense, his hands balled into fists. "Lauren, stop," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. But she didn't. "You think Chloe's parents are wrong about you? They're not. You're a fraud." The words hit like a punch, and the guests gasped, their eyes darting between the screen and me. I felt their stares like needles piercing my skin. Ethan grabbed my hand under the table, his grip desperate. "Chloe, I can explain," he whispered, but I couldn't speak. My throat was tight, my mind racing. What was this? What had he done? The video shifted, showing a blurry photo on Lauren's phone, a document, maybe a letter. The text was too small to read, but Lauren's voice narrated, cold and deliberate. "This is proof. Ethan's been hiding money troubles, debts he never told Chloe about. He's not the stable guy she thinks. He's a mess, and she deserves to know before she ties her life to him." The barn erupted in murmurs, a wave of shock rippling through the crowd. My cousin Emily let out a soft, "Oh my God." Ethan's mom, Linda, covered her mouth, her eyes wide. Jake stood up, his chair scraping loudly, but he didn't move, just stared at the screen. I felt like I was drowning, the weight of Lauren's words pulling me under. Debts? Secrets? I'd known Ethan wasn't rich, but he'd always been honest, or so I thought. I turned to him, my voice trembling. "Is this true?" His eyes met mine, filled with guilt and something else. Fear. "Chloe, it's not what you think," he started, but the video wasn't done. Lauren's voice grew sharper, venomous. "And you know who sent me this? Chloe's parents. They found out about your past, Ethan, and they warned me. They didn't come today because they couldn't watch their daughter marry a liar." The screen flashed to a text message, my mother's name at the top. "Chloe deserves better," it read. "Tell her the truth." The words burned into my mind, each one a betrayal. My parents had orchestrated this, using Lauren to tear us apart. The guests were silent now, the kind of silence that suffocates, heavy with judgment and pity. Then came the final blow. The video cut to a new scene, Lauren standing outside the barn hours earlier. She looked straight at the camera, her eyes cold. "Chloe, if you're seeing this, it's because I love you. You need to know who you're marrying. Ethan's been hiding this, and Mom and Dad were right. You're making a mistake." The screen went black, and the silence in the barn was deafening. A void swallowing every laugh, every clink, every shred of joy. I stood, my chair scraping back, my hands shaking. The guests stared, some with tears, others with shock. Ethan reached for me, but I pulled away, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it. "Chloe, please," he said, his voice breaking. But I couldn't look at him. My sister's words, my parents' betrayal, the weight of 100 eyes. It was too much. I wanted to scream, to run, to make it all stop. The video was over, but the truth it unleashed was just the beginning. The room felt like it was closing in, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. The silence in the barn was absolute, a heavy blanket smothering every breath. My legs felt weak, but I stayed standing. My eyes locked on the blank screen where Lauren's face had just faded away. The guests were frozen, some with hands over their mouths, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Ethan's hand hovered near mine, but I couldn't move. The accusations hung in the air like smoke. Debts, lies, betrayal. My parents had called me a disgrace for choosing him, and now it seemed like they were right. But then, the screen flickered again. This wasn't over. A new video started, smooth and clear, unlike the shaky one before. Sarah's voice came through the speakers, calm but firm. "Hold on, everyone. There's more to this story." I whipped my head toward her. She was at the projector, her face set with determination. The video showed my parents' living room, the familiar floral couch and antique clock. My mother's voice, sharp and unyielding. "Chloe's throwing her life away on that boy. He's buried in debt from his failed business, student loans, credit cards. We can't let her marry him." My father nodded, his face stern. "We'll make sure she knows. Lauren will handle it." The guests murmured, confusion rippling through the room. But the video continued, cutting to emails, screenshots of messages between my parents and Lauren. "Fabricate the proof if you have to," one read from my mom. "Make it look real." My heart skipped. Fabricate? The next clip showed Lauren on a call, laughing. "Yeah, I doctored those documents. Ethan's clean, but they want Chloe back under their thumb. She's too independent now." The room gasped, the sound like a wave crashing. Jake, Ethan's brother, stood up, his face flushed. "I knew it," he said loudly. "Lauren confessed to me last night. That's why I was late. I was getting this evidence." Chaos erupted. Guests whispered furiously, some shaking their heads in disbelief. My Aunt Susan's face drained of color. She'd been in on the whispers all day. Emily, my cousin, shrank in her seat, her earlier smugness gone. Linda, Ethan's mom, turned to Tom, tears in her eyes. "We almost believed it," she whispered. Ethan pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me like a shield. Chloe, I swear there are no debts. I've been honest. I looked at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. The video proved it. Bank statements, real ones, showing his finances stable. My parents had twisted everything to control me, calling me a disgrace for defying them. The crowd's shock turned to outrage. Sarah stepped forward, microphone in hand. This was meant to ruin their day, but the truth came out. Chloe's parents skipped because they couldn't face her strength. Applause started slow, then built, a thunderous wave of support. Tears streamed down my face, not from pain, but relief. Jake approached, hugging Ethan. "I'm sorry I didn't warn you sooner," he said. "Lauren roped me in, but I couldn't let it stand." We learned later that Sarah had overheard whispers and pieced it together with Jake's help, swapping the video at the last minute. In the aftermath, the reception transformed. Guests surrounded us, offering hugs and words of encouragement. "You two are unbreakable," Mia said, her earlier whispers forgotten in the embarrassment. My Aunt Susan slunk away early, her head down. Lauren never showed. Texts later revealed she'd fled after sending the original video, humiliated when her plan backfired. As for my parents, we didn't hear from them that night. Days later, a stiff apology came via email, but it was too late. We cut ties, choosing peace over their toxicity. Ethan and I danced under the lights, our bond stronger, forged in fire. The wedding ended on a high note, with toasts to truth and love prevailing. Looking back, that day taught me something profound. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who stand by you when the storm hits. My parents saw my choices as disgraceful, but the real shame was their manipulation. It's easy to judge from afar, but love demands honesty, not control. If you've ever faced family drama at a milestone moment, you know the ache and the triumph of rising above it. Weddings are about new beginnings, and ours was reborn in that revelation. What about you? If this story hit home, share in the comments. Have you dealt with family secrets at a big event? Drop your thoughts below. It means the world to hear from you. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for more real-life tales of heartbreak and redemption. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Until next time.